Hi guys, today we talk about 10 Nazi scientists who survived the war. Ahead of the pack up to World War II, it was surely known that the Third Reich was the most considerable power of science and innovation that the world had ever observed. Mixing mysterious legend and wizardry with bleeding-edge designing and material science. Adolf Hitler tried to ace issue and soul similarly as he tried to ace the countries of the world. So imposing did Hitler's logical may appear to be that numerous American business intrigues wanted to align with Nazi Germany as opposed to oppose this developing worldwide superpower. Chagrined with President Franklin D. Roosevelt's Communist New Deal, conspicuous American finance managers even endeavored to enroll the guide of adorned war legend Major General Smedley Butler in their plot to supplant Roosevelt's organization with an extremist American government, as Nazi Germany filled in an area and impact. Hitler turned out to be progressively jealous of American assembling power. He longed for a relentless association of German mysterious science and American animal power that would set the Third Reich's stranglehold over the planet's future. In spite of the fact that set of experiences recalls Hitler as having lost World War II, his unholy dream was bound to come to fruition, unfazed by the atrocities executed by the Third Reich during the war. Heads of the American military and mechanical areas imported many top Nazi researchers to work in America after the triumph of the Allies in World War II. Called Operation Paperclip, this mystery activity prompted various clinical and designing advancements, including the improvement of the Saturn V rocket and the establishing of NASA, in numerous ways. The Operation Paperclip researchers were straightforwardly answerable for the unchallenged military and financial incomparability appreciated by America in the after-war years. Yet their Nazi past was commonly neglected or whitewashed by the American media. In the accompanying rundown, we'll recount the narratives of 10 Nazi researchers who endured the war and thrived as American resources.
Number 1. Walter Schieber.
Walter Schieber was a basic part in the Third Reich's wartime creation. His pre-war involvement with material assembling made him monstrously valuable to the National Socialist Party, and in 1943, Hitler granted him with the War Merit Cross. After the war, Schieber got the attention of Charles Lukes, a brigadier general with the U.S. Army Chemical Corps. Lukes was allotted to the German town of Heidelberg to deal with the advancement of nerve specialists like Tabin and sarin gas. Instead of being repulsed by Schieber's past, Lukes was attracted to this Nazi war criminal for his nearby associations with Heinrich Himmler and his close information on the gases utilized by the Third Reich during the war. 1. Schieber worked for the Chemical Corps for a very long time and later turned into a resource of the CIA. Since he was helpful to the American government, Schieber was never arraigned for his atrocities. Actually, he assumed a vital function in the advancement of the sarin gas that has accordingly been utilized by the U.S. military. Number 2. Hubertus Stranglehold. Known as the father of space medicine, Hubertus Stranglehold helped the United States Air Force and NASA create huge numbers of the standards of clinical consideration in space that are still by and by today. For quite a long time, the Aerospace Medical Association, ASMA, gave a yearly honor named after Stranglehold to noticeable patrons in the field of room medication. Be that as it may, when his dubious associations with Nazi war lawbreakers became exposed, ASMA struck Stranglehold's name from the award too. Throughout his long vocation as a regarded researcher in the United States, Stranglehold intensely kept in any information from getting the atrocities carried out by the Nazis. Nonetheless, He was embroiled during the Nuremberg preliminaries as having contribution with the monstrosities submitted at Dachau, and he talked in detail at a Nazi meeting in 1942 about the notorious cold experiments beloved by his partners and understudies. Many thought that it was difficult to accept that Stranglehold had lied about his association in Nazi human experimentation. However, the proof proposes that Stranglehold's mastery in keeping individuals alive in space was inferred at any rate to some extent from his personal information on exactly how much the human body can suffer under outrageous pressure. Number 3. Dr. Kurt Blomme. Apparently, Dr. Kurt Blomme was Hitler's head of malignancy research. Yet, actually, he was accountable for the advancement of Nazi organic fighting capabilities. Blomme stood preliminary at Nuremberg for performing willful extermination and leading human experimentation. However, he was absolved because of the intercession of the American military. The United States government needed to develop Blomme's cozy information on human natural shortcomings to make significantly deadlier nerve agents. 3. Blomme's U.S. Army Chemical Corps faculty document makes no notice of his contribution in human experimentation. He experienced a mind-blowing remainder in West Germany dealing with mystery anticipates for the American government and stayed dynamic in the conservative Germany party until his passing in 1969. Number 4. Arthur Rudolph. At the point when Arthur Rudolph was brought into the United States in 1947 as a feature of Operation Paperclip, he was noted to be an enthusiastic Nazi, yet all notice of his atrocities was precluded from legitimate reports. Nonetheless, archives from 2 years after the fact affirm that Rudolph had been assigned as a war criminal by Allied officials. In 1961, Arthur Rudolph joined individual Nazi Wernher von Braun at NASA to plan the Saturn V rocket. Without Rudolph's rocketry virtuoso, the Apollo undertaking couldn't have ever come to be, though the American government was without a doubt thankful for his administration. The Justice Department accused Rudolph in 1984 of working huge number of captives to death while regulating the improvement of the V-2 rocket during World War II. As opposed to deal with indictments, Rudolph consented to turn in his American populace and leave the country. 4. When it comes to American aviation programs in the after-war period, it seems like requesting a set of experiences without Nazi impact is a scaffold excessively far. We should essentially placate ourselves with our appreciation that NASA chose to try not to utilize slave work as a convenience when preparing to the 1969 moon landing. Number 5. Magnus von Braun. In spite of the fact that honestly less popular than his sibling Wernher, Magnus von Braun unquestionably appreciated a level of shame among individuals from the American military. They named him as a perilous German Nazi, who represented a more prominent danger to public security than about 6 defamed SS commanders, serving as his sibling's very own aide. Magnus arranged the acquiescence of the German amassed rocket group in 1945, after substantiating himself similarly as skilled as his sibling when it came to designing. Magnus was invited by the U.S. Army workforce at Fort Bliss, Texas, with a combination of businesslike energy and vigilant doubt. Their second thoughts about the more youthful von Braun were immediately demonstrated to be supported when Magnus was discovered endeavoring to sell a block of platinum that he'd taken from the base to a goldsmith in El Paso. The episode was quieted to try not to earn any negative press coordinated at Operation Paperclip. Wernher von Braun distributed equity for the infraction actually by causing a fierce beating on his sibling, his standing apparently clean by the episode. Magnus proceeded to appreciate a long and prosperous profession with Chrysler prior to resigning to the Arizona desert. Number 6. Dieter Grau. As an individual from the von Braun rocket gathering, Dieter Grau was a vital part in the advancement of the V-2 rocket during World War II. After the war, Grau was shipped off the United States as a component of Operation Paperclip. He filled in as quality chief on various rocket ventures led by Wernher von Braun for the benefit of the U.S. government, including the advancement of the Saturn V rocket. Before his work for the U.S. Army and NASA, Dieter Grau performed quality control of a to some degree distinctive kind. During his time as a Nazi resource in Germany, Grau was quickly posted in Mittelwerk, the underground slave work rocket plant run by Arthur Rudolph, at Mittelwerk. Grau utilized his ability in investigating, or the recognition of laboral harm. The slaves that he outed at Mittelwerk were exposed to an extraordinary discipline held for saboteurs. Public hanging in the processing plant's primary lobby by a crane that was raised gradually to stretch out the anguish. 6. Grau lived to be 101 and was affectionately recalled by his American associates for his meticulousness in all that he did. Number 7. Walter Dornberger. Not at all like other Operation Paperclip Nazi resources who pulled off their atrocities without any penalty, Walter Dornberger saw jail time for the utilization of slave work in the creation of V-2 rockets. Be that as it may, Dornberger, who had arrived at the position of lieutenant general under Hitler's system, just went through 2 years in the slammer before he was delivered by the American military. He was hence taken to the United States to rejoin his kindred Nazi scientific geniuses. An SS General, Dornberger was before long raised to the post of VP of the Bell Aircraft Corporation. During his profession as a Nazi general, Dornberger had terminated more than 1,000 V-2 rockets on neighborhoods of London. Dornberger was likewise there the day that the principal V-2 rocket was dispatched in 1937, on which event he asked individual Nazi scientific genius Wernher von Braun on the off chance that he perceived the groundbreaking quality of the function that had quite recently unfolded. Von Braun reacted, "Truly, today the spaceship was born." Dornberger accepted that it was the Third Reich's fixation on space head-out that prompted Hitler's annihilation. However, when it came time to fabricate space investigation vehicles for his new American promoters, Dornberger was glad to oblige. General Dornberger experienced an amazing remainder, apparently unhaunted by his past. He kicked a bucket in his country of Germany at age 84. Number 8. Hermann Oberth. It was Hermann Oberth's spearheading work in rocket plan that initially roused Wernher von Braun to put forth a concentrated effort to the investigation of rocketry. At the point when Oberth previously said the possibility that rockets could work in the vacuum of room, he was ridiculed, but when he built up the German V-2 rocket close by von Braun, his hypotheses stepped toward approval. What's more, when Oberth rejoined von Braun in America to build up the Saturn V rocket, his fantasies at long last took flight. 8. Oberth's commitments to advanced science are evident. Different parts of his inheritance are more not entirely clear. Possibly spurious statements credited to Oberth appear to demonstrate that this Nazi researcher was under the feeling that human spaceflight abilities weren't created by people alone. When asked who had helped humankind in our mission to try to achieve the impossible, Oberth evidently answered, the individuals of different worlds, regardless of whether this statement is precise. Oberth is on record as a firm adherent that UFOs are spaceships from another close planetary system. Was this conviction simply an arbitrary assumption? Or was this acclaimed Nazi aviation researcher conscious of proof of extraterrestrial life kept external the open arena of information? Number 9. Kurt Ebers. Close to Wernher von Braun, Kurt Ebers is the most acclaimed previous Nazi to elegance the positions of American rocketry's corridor of popularity. Ebers was the overseer of the John F. Kennedy Space Center in Florida from 1962 to 1974, but in another life, he was Hitler's flight test chief during the advancement of the V-2 rocket. In spite of what we think about the abhorrences of the V-2 improvement program, Ebers was never considered responsible for his past. He actually appreciates a sparkling after-death reputation. Ebers was important for the gathering driven by Magnus von Braun that arranged their acquiescence of the German scientific geniuses toward the finish of the war. Very quickly, Ebers was whisked away to start work at Fort Bliss. He was before long moved to Huntsville, Alabama, to administer the development of the NASA offices at Cape Canaveral. 9. With Ebers in charge, NASA effectively dispatched 13 Saturn V rockets into space, including the rocket that conveyed the Apollo 11 space travelers to the Moon. However, Ebers couldn't have ever had the option to make these extraordinary American accomplishments conceivable had it not been for his contribution in compelling captives to construct rockets of battle for the Nazi domain. The last one. Number 10. Wernher von Braun. Wernher von Braun was immediately perceived by Nazi specialists just like a material science and designing virtuoso. However, von Braun was definitely not academic in nature. His powerful mystique and visionary ability made him the ideal possibility for getting sorted out enormous scope creation tasks, for example, the advancement of the V-2 rocket. At age 25, von Braun was accountable for a group of 400 individuals. When he was 30, his group had expanded to 5,000 strong. During the war, Wernher von Braun visited the slave manufacturing plant in any event multiple times. On one event, he visited the wretched dozing quarters for the constrained workers. However, during his residency in the American space program, he gave a valiant effort to separate himself from the barbarities submitted by the Nazis by advancing the position that there was nothing that he might have done to help, fully mindful that several slaves were passing on to rejuvenate his fantasies. Von Braun still hotly devoted himself day and night to the advancement of the V-2 rocket. Without von Braun, it's dubious that the Saturn V rocket would have ever come around. But since of von Braun, unlimited positions of constrained workers worked him passed on in the darkness. At what terrible cost did America get her incontestable incomparability in space? Thank you guys for watching my video. Please subscribe to my channel and join us. See you next video.